Hi, thanks for joining me for another episode of Teen Pride Book Talk. This is the program on AADL TV where I take about 5 minutes each time to talk about a young adult book that is representative and inclusive of folks in the LGBTQIA plus community. I have the coolest book to talk to you about today. It is a new book called Blackout, and it is a collection of interconnected love stories amongst teens, and it is written collaboratively by 6 different authors. Definitely names that you know. It's Dhonielle Clayton, who sort of spearheaded the whole project, Tiffany Jackson, Nic Stone, Angie Thomas, Ashley Woodfolk, and Nicola Yoon. The stories are chronological through one night in New York City. So it starts at like 5 in the evening and goes till 10 at night. And on this night in New York City, the power goes out. So there's a blackout. And there are different sort of pairings of teen characters in each little segment. And Tiffany Jackson wrote the sort of backbone structure, I would call it, because she has the first chapter, and then Nic Stone has a story. Then we go back to Tiffany Jackson, then Ashley Woodfolk has a story, and back to Tiffany Jackson. So Tiffany Jackson has these little pieces about these 2 characters, Tammy and Kareem, that are sort of threaded throughout. And then in each story, there are new characters introduced. But one of the really cool things about this book is that within these stories, all the characters are connected, but sometimes in really subtle ways. Like someone will mention their cousin and you'll remember that that character was in another story. Or someone talks about their father driving a bus, and in another story there are kids on a bus on a field trip. So, and they're all headed. The main goal for this night is to get to a party in Brooklyn at this guy's named Twig's house. Twig is having a party where he's DJing, and everyone is headed to Brooklyn to go to this party. So just to show you how connected these stories are, I tried to help myself by this. So this is Twig's party, and then each one of these squares, like this is Tiffany Jackson's story, and then that's Angie Thomas, Nic Stone. So these are each of the sort of stories, and then all those lines are how characters interplay between the stories, just either by mentioning or the characters are sort of in the other stories. And I love that part of it because these names would pop up and you'd be like, oh, I heard that name. And sometimes in multiple stories. So the collaborative work done amongst these authors is kind of amazing. So now why am I talking about this book with you today? Well, this book is, all these stories are love stories, and the authors set out, they had a goal in mind where they wanted to write teen love stories that were centering on Black teens. They feel that often those storylines are sort of the sidelines, they're not the main part of a love story. And so they just wanted to show positive love stories amongst Black teens. And they just wanted to exude positivity. So that doesn't mean that every love story ends in a neat little package, but it does mean that the stories show you all different kinds of love. So there's family love, there's self-love, there's romantic love, and then the romantic love, like the first story is about Tammy and Kareem, and they broke up, but they end up applying for the same internship, and then they get thrown into this situation where they're both trying to get from Harlem to Brooklyn during a blackout. So they can't take the subway, they can't get money out of the ATM to hire a driver, so they just have to walk. And that's their storyline. But then the next storyline is these 2 guys, Tremaine and JJ, on a subway, and they know each other sort of, but you start to find out a little bit more about how their lives have intersected throughout from like 6th grade to their teenage years. And you learn about a character in that story who is questioning and thinks he might be bisexual. And Then we go back to Kareem and Tammy, and then there's another story, and it's a love story between two girls. And one of the love stories in this book has a girl who gets to decide between, or is picking between, two guys. So she loves them both, these love stories. They're not all heteronormative, and they represent an array of different ways to express love. And I think that it affirms to Black teens that they can be the center of a story. But it also is deeply representative of kids who are experiencing all different kinds of love. Another character in this book is definitely New York City and its boroughs. There's affection expressed from the characters about New York. There are people visiting New York, and just the geography of New York, like this one couple traversing from all the way up from Harlem down to Brooklyn. They have to cross the Brooklyn Bridge. The importance of how you navigate around New York. It's a big city, and the transportation and how these kids get from place to place. And so, to sum up, there are a lot of things that I really enjoyed about this collection of interconnected stories. But two of the things I think that kept me so engaged in it were the trying to figure out how each character was connected, which you can see from this map that I drew, that it was sort of this puzzle that was really fun to figure out. And then I really enjoyed that the love stories were so representative of many different kinds of love. It was fun to read from start to finish. It is so interesting to me how these authors collaborated on this during a time when they couldn't even be together in person. I love thinking about the connections that they made writing these stories and how that must have been for them. So that's Blackout by Dhonielle Clayton, Tiffany D. Jackson, Nic Stone, Angie Thomas, Ashley Woodfolk, and Nicola Yoon. And I highly recommend that you give it a read. Thanks for joining me.